Okay, I don't know if you can see that. Music's gone now. Well, today, we're gonna be playing Eternal, which is a card game that I've started playing recently, which I've really liked. I think it's kind of inspired from Magic more than other card games, but I don't know enough about Magic to say that. But yeah, basically, I think this might be my new kind of card game I'll do on my channel, because I haven't done one really consistently on my channel anymore in a while. I kind of dropped Heroes. For some reason, I just never want to record Gwent, even though even when I did enjoy it. Thingy, I don't think Hearthstone is the thing for me, although I'm not gonna stop doing videos on it necessarily. I'll do it when I feel like it. I might still do some Undercards one, but I'm not really feeling Undercards at the moment. But this game at the moment, I'm really enjoying. It has some like glaring flaws, but it also has some massive advantages over other card games. Um, so just to tell you the basics, because I imagine a lot of you watching have never heard of this game. Um, Essentially, it's like if you can start from Hearthstone again, just because that's the most popular one. You have minions with stat lines just like in Hearthstone, but there's a couple differences in this game. First of all, though you can choose whether your minions attack or not, you do not get to choose where they attack. If your opponent, when you tell which minions which minions you're attacking with, can use their minions to block the attacks, or they can not block them and just let them hit face. And as well as that, unless a unit has endurance, which is a keyword that lets them do both and also never be stunned by anything, you can't attack and block on the same turn with the same unit. So anyway, the only other thing that's very different that isn't just something I should explain as we go is in this game you don't increase your mana or your power in this game automatically. You have to play a sigil every turn, which is one of these cards. Every faction has a sigil, and there's 5 factions in the game, and technically you can make a deck with any amount of cards from any faction. But the more factions you start to use, the more you'll have to spread out your sigils, because every single faction card requires at least 1 influence from that faction, and you gain 1 influence as well as 1 power for the faction that you chose when you play a sigil. So if I play a time sigil, I'll obviously get a time influence. Some of the better faction cards require multiple influences to work, and there's some kind of half and half cards, like this one right here, which is a time and justice card. So I need to have a time influence and a justice influence to be able to play this. So the general idea of this deck, this is a bit of a weird deck, but basically you can get pre-made decks in the store for 2,500 gold, and a pack costs 1,000. So you're paying 2.5 times as much as you would for a normal pack. But when you get a pre-made deck, you know exactly what card you're getting, and you'll get every single card in the deck for free. And about 50 cards in a deck usually. So that's a lot of cards you can get. So it's good value, and especially since you know what you're getting. And I noticed one of the pre-made decks had this card in it as a guaranteed card you're going to get, which is a legendary called Martyr's Chains. This is a card that requires 4 justice influences and 8 power, and in this game it does take quite a while to get to that point. Since you have to use cards in the form of sigils to ramp, that means you're not going to ramp every turn if you don't have enough sigils in your hand, and you still only grow 1 card a turn. So the game does tend to slow down a lot, and it does get pretty hard to get to high mana costs or power costs or whatever. So this card is quite difficult to play, but once you get it played, you've basically won. What this card does is, it doubles the stats of your units every turn at the end of your turn, and whenever you play a power card, which are like the sigils, you get to insta-kill an enemy unit of your choice, and that's permanent. That's a permanent effect for the rest of the game. This is an amazing card right here. It's really hard to get to, but as I say, once you've played it, you've basically won. So, although this isn't a very traditional style of ramp, this is essentially a ramp deck. There's a few cards that increase your maximum power and stuff like that, so you can get there early. There's a lot of sigils in this deck too. I'm running a total of, just a moment, 28, 29, 35 power cards, and I only have to run a minimum of 25, and usually 25 is the right amount. But in this deck, I really want to get to Chains of the Martyr, so I'm increasing the amount of sigils I have in the deck to more than I would usually use. You may have noticed that it's in this kind of second deck over here, which has 5 cards. This is called your Market, and this is another mechanic in the game. There aren't that many cards with this mechanic yet, but they all seem very useful. But essentially, you get to make a mini second deck, which is obviously your Market, and some cards allow you to look at your Market and pick any card from it and swap it with a card in your hand. So I crafted 4 copies of this card, which lets me do just that. As long as the card is a Justice card, I can swap it with a card in my hand, and that means that I'm a lot more likely to be able to get Chains of the Martyr's Chains, because if I just put it in my deck, it'd be one of 75 cards. But now there's 4 copies of a card in the deck that can guaranteed pull it, so it's almost like I'm running 4 of them. So yeah, that's the idea of this deck. Time to see how it goes. There's a couple other features to it too, but I don't want to spend this whole video just explaining everything, because there is a lot to go through. So we're going to get into a ranked game and see how we're going to do. This deck has had mixed results so far. I have exactly a 50% win rate so far, and I feel like it should be better than that, but all my losses were like really extreme and really unlucky, but at the same time, all my wins were really lucky, so I haven't had like a kind of normal game with this deck yet. And this looks like a good hand. I'm keeping this straight away. So these are also sigils or power cards technically, but they're a little different. These ones give me both time and justice influence at the same time, but have a downside. The downside being that the one that I just played is depleted, which means that you don't get the power instantly. You only get it on your next turn. It's depleted unless you have a sigil in your hand already, which we do, so it wasn't. And this is depleted unless I have a unit on the board, which I do, so it won't be depleted. But you see the downside, obviously, like it wouldn't give you the mana the power straight away if you didn't satisfy the condition. So we're ramping up really quickly. This is actually a really, really good hand. Now, we just played a relic here, Vapor Hut, which allows us to permanently, for the rest of the game, anytime we want, pay 5 power to play the top power card of our deck. It is depleted, so we don't get the power instantly, but it does ramp us up and give us more influence still. So that's great for getting us to the Chains of the Martyr even faster. Man, it feels kind of bad swapping a sigil from our hand, since they are what's ramping us up. But I think we have to swap one of these cards, and I think we're going to swap the sigil for Martyr's Chains. Because this card plays a sigil from our deck, so we'd rather have this than just a sigil on its own. This unit also has flying, you might have noticed. Flying is a mechanic where enemies can't block a flying enemy unless they have a flying unit themselves. So, yeah, units on the ground can't block flying enemies, basically. So, let's just pull a Justice Sigil from our deck. The reason I'm picking a Justice one specifically is, first of all, we needed that 4th influence to even be able to play this, even if we did get to 8 power. And secondly, I'm running quite a few copies of a card in this deck, which is a weapon, which is basically a buff in this game, which gives a unit +1/+1 for every Justice influence I have. So in this deck, it's more important to have Justice influence than any other kind. If I had a sigil in my hand, I'd be able to play this turn, but sadly it's depleted and we didn't get to 8 power because of that, but we will get to it next turn. And just for the sake of thinning our deck of sigils, we'll use this to pull a sigil out of our deck. And we'll be able to play Martyr's Chains this turn. And by the way, pulling sigils out of your deck with this counts as playing them for Empower cards. So we will get the insta-kill effect whenever we use this Vapor Hut to pull a sigil from our deck. So we can just insta-kill that unit. That was easy. And boom, everything just got doubled. This is, I gotta say, this feels a little bit weird because, like, usually when I record things, everything goes wrong, and I was prepared for this to not work at all. And so far, I think this is the best game I've had with this deck. That's the fastest I've gotten this card out. There was one game where I was going to get it pretty quickly too, but my opponent played a card I'd never seen before. And it was like a 3/3/2 called Cat Burglar, I think it was. And it lets him discard a relic from my hand. And I just put Martyr's Chains into my hand, so he just deleted it from my hand, and that was, like, obviously my win condition. And I'd already wasted my other win conditions, like, as just defensive tools, as I was, Oh, well, thank him. You can customize your emotes a little bit, so that's my thanks emote. I probably should change it a little bit. Anyway, this has Scout, which means we get to look at the top card of our deck and put it on the top, or back on the top, or put it on the bottom. Now, we don't want another sigil, so we're going to put it on the bottom. We're going to play that sigil, let's kill that. And we're going to play this just to thin our deck of even more sigils. Oh yeah, this unit didn't die the first time because it had Aegis, which is a keyword which makes it so that, oh, we win. A keyword that makes it so it's immune to one spell or relic's effect. But then the next time it happens, the Aegis is gone, and it isn't immune. Well, that was a quick game. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you're interested by this game, because I'm quite enjoying this so far. See you in the next one.